Thank you so much, everyone. The moment finally came to be able to share with you the thoughts and the reflections from the chapter that is so dear to me. Dear to me because number 8, it's the day that I was born. And number 8 to me means the infinite, right? Let's put it down. It's the symbol of the infinite. And the chapter also, it's very dear to me because to take heart is to be able to have courage, right? To be able to have joy in everything that you do, even when things get very hard in your life. And I had gone through many struggles in my life personally, and I have overcame a lot of them since I was a little girl until now. So I invite you all to reflect with me this teaching. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to read the chapter and I'm going to make some comments. Okay, so we have to start with, I cannot thank enough God for the opportunity to have created me, the same way as He created all of you. Thank goodness, thank you for that, for being here. And thank all the spirit guides, the disciples, and the Enlightenment Spirit Society, and all of you for being here, and all the patience that everyone since the beginning of my creation until here that had so much faith that I was going to do well. And with the permission of with all my heart, I ask for permission to talk a little bit about a chapter that is so important in our lives. Take heart. First, I would like to talk about Humberto de Campos. Humberto de Campos, the spirit that through the hands of the medium Francisco Cândido Xavier wrote the book The Good News. And to talk a little bit about Humberto de Campos, he was from very humble beginnings. He was raised in the northeast of Brazil. And he went through a lot of heartbreaking in his life. And through his teen years, he found himself working in various jobs. But then also, he started to feel the passion to write. And he worked very hard at it, and he became very successful. And he went on to become this very wonderful writer, a journalist. And back in the days, what was happening is that his writing was touching the hearts of those very, I would say, the group of people that love to hear funny stories. They were very ironic, and he just became very popular. And he found himself with all this attention, and he sold a lot of articles and books, and then he became very ill. Once he became very ill, he found himself not only having to work so hard now to write. Before, he wrote because he loved it, but he found himself that the intensity of his writing was always growing, and he needed to just keep on writing. So that made him very sad. After he's discarnated, he found himself in the spiritual world, and he started to work with Chico Xavier to be able to bring a lot of message of encouragement for those who are going through the struggles, especially the struggles that he went through in the spiritual, on earth, and then also in the spiritual world. So I would like to say thank you to Humberto de Campos for bringing so much light to our hearts. And we cannot say much, but what he summarizes in the preface of the Good News is, Jesus sees that a drop of his devoted and compassionate love penetrated an unclean vessel of my spirit. The wicked man who arrived on earth found the ray of the light destined for the purification of his sanctuary. He supports my thoughts with his unlimited goodness. The earthly rich still stifles the gold in my heart that he gave me out of his mercy. But like Bartholomew, I already take heart to meet the enemies of my peace, which are sheltering inside of me. I have the joy of the gospel because I recognize that his love will not forsake me. My spirit works and rests while relying upon such friendly and generous protection. So the title of the chapter is Take Heart. In English, it means to feel encouraged and optimistic. But I went back to the original. The original was written in Portuguese, and it means bom ânimo. And the definition of bom ânimos, if we're breaking down bom, in Latin means bonus, goodness, habit, fulfillment of your duties, to be sure and to be solid. And animus, in Latin, it means animus, the spirit, the soul, and opinion. But when you put both of it together, the bom ânimo, it means charity. But in this sense, it's to have good mood, to be joyful towards all creatures, to work, right? No matter where you're working, to work and to persevere in your work, to have the will to continue a particular task or to start a particular task. The morality here is the Christian morality, to rejoice in Christ, to follow the gospel in the best of your capability, and the disposition, right? To always, and I go back to the word joyful, to be joyful in everything that you do, and to animate. To animate is to give life to something, to see even in things that you think it doesn't mean much, but to put life into it. And a very interesting definition was stomach. So thinking about the stomach, think about the digestive system, right? What does it do? It takes the food gratefully, right? And then passes through the system, and the system takes all the good vitamins, nutrients, everything that your body needs to function and to be healthy. But it also does something very important that we should all try to do in our lives. Not only take everything that's good, but everything that does not serve you any longer. Gratefully let it go. And another definition for bom ânimos was peace. To find peace everywhere you go, in everything that you do, right? And home. And home means to go back and find the kingdom of heaven. Where? In your heart. To make it grow in your heart. So this message for the chapter 8, it invites all of you, especially myself, to take heart, to have bom ânimos towards your life, towards yourself. Know that you're an immortal spirit. It doesn't matter what you're going through in your life. It doesn't matter what you have done in your life. God loves. And there's so many opportunities of growth in every single moment of our lives. So I love this picture because you can see a tree and a nest, a little bird. It doesn't matter about the climate, right? And it doesn't matter if it's windy, raining. The mother bird is still, little by little, put all these branches together to make a nest. And then the spring comes, and look what happened. With bom ânimos, she was able to find the kingdom of God in her little home. So I love this picture. So the chapter 8, one of the beautiful things about Humberto de Campos, and he's able to talk about the 12 disciples. And every disciple, in my opinion, brings an archetype, a characteristic of the humankind, right? You can have the strong-willed one like Simon Peter, and then the Apostle Paul with all his determination and courage. And then you have Bartholomew. Bartholomew was one of the youngest disciples of Christ. And let's think about when it's young, you think that someone young doesn't have too much experience, right? And his life was like all the other disciples, had a lot of struggles in itself. But because he was one of the youngest, and because he had lost, which is not lost, but said goodbye to his mom because she discarnated in such a young age, you can imagine what he went through, right? As a young adult, we aspire for a better life. We aspire for opportunities. We aspire for financial comfort. We aspire to be able to be successful in whatever we do. And also, living so far away, even to meet the other fishermen that he used to work with, was hard. It was a long trip. However, he was one of the disciples that was very much living and breathing the gospel. And he was a true follower of Christ. He did everything that was supposed for a disciple to do. But one thing that we find ourselves feeling sometimes, especially when we are on the work of the good, is sadness. Sadness, discouragement, and even depression. So this chapter talks about and invites all of us that do feel that way to take a moment of silence, to connect your inner self with Christ, and to rejoice in Christ, and give all your worries to Christ during your lifetime, especially here on earth. So as I read the chapter, I'm going to make some comments. So the first one is, continues to talk about the Apostle Bartholomew. So the Apostle Bartholomew was one of the most dedicated disciples of Christ since the early days of his preaching along the Tirariades. All of his efforts were focused not on accompanying the masters in his divine work. However, Bartholomew was sad, and innumerable times Christ would find him in deep and painful reflection. This is probably the reason why, during one night, while Simon Peter and his family was involved in the domestic chores, Jesus took the opportunity of a few moments to speak at length to Bartholomew's heart. And this is very interesting because Jesus did not speak to Bartholomew as a human being. He spoke to him as a mortal spirit. So when he talks about Bartholomew's heart, he talks about our spirit, our souls. So after Jesus' affectionate and fraternal questions, Bartholomew allowed his sensitive spirit to express itself. So as you can see, when we are in the work of charity, right, in the work of improving our inner beings, we find ourselves in very blissful moments, which is the beautiful things that happens in our lives, the amazing everything that happens, and then also in very sad situations. And these two situations allow us to be connected to God in a very meaningful way. So his sensitive spirit, it was a devoted spirit to the mission of Christ, but was also very, very, very sad. So when he shyly explained to Christ, Master, I would never been able to explain to you the reason for my bitter sadness. All I can say is that your gospel fills me with hope for a kingdom of light that awaits our hearts beyond on height. So he knew that that was the way. But why then still feel sad? Why then still feel melancholic? Don't we find sometimes ourselves feeling that way? I do. When you clarified, and he continues, your kingdom is not of this world, I experience new courage to cross the miseries of the path on earth, because here the seal of evil seems to obscure the purest things. Everywhere you see the victory of crime, the game of ambitions, and the harvest of delusion. So on the planet Earth is the planet of trials and expiations. And there's so much that we go through here for our spiritual growth. But the beautiful thing is that Jesus, when he came 2,000 years ago, he was able to speak to everybody in such a deep way that it allows them to do an inner reform, to be able to stop and analyze his questions and his message with their spirit. And that's what Bartholomew did. The voice of the disciple choked because he felt his love, right? With tears. Nevertheless, Jesus started at him calmly and spoke with serenity. Our philosophy, however, is of the gospel or of the good news. Bartholomew, have you ever seen any good news not produce joy? Right? All the good news, do they produce joy? They do. You are doing well by keeping your hopes in the face of these new teachings. And I want to inspire my disciple spirit to take heart, to have bon animus, to go through all the definitions of bon animus, to work, to have the will, to animate, right? To be calm, to be peaceful, and to always come back to their own hearts and find a connection with God. If I have had the occasion to teach that my kingdom is not of this world, this does not mean that I do not intend on extending it to the hearts of those living on earth. Look how beautiful this is. So the kingdom of heaven is not from this earth, right? But Jesus will extend this kingdom of heaven to all of us once we find joy in our hearts and the connection with our hearts to God. Do you think that I would have come to this world without such comforting certainty? The gospel will have to flourish first of all in the soul of the created being before it can give fruit in the spirit of the crowds. However, I come from my Father filled with strength and trust, and my message will produce great joy for those that will receive it with their hearts. So, the message, the gospel will have to flourish first of all in the soul of the created being. What would be the soul, right? Your consciousness, your pure consciousness. You can, hello, welcome. You can add to your heart. And once he asks us and he invites us for allow the gospel to flourish within ourselves, he's asking us, inviting us, to do an inner reform. Because one of the ways that we are able to connect with God is by knowing ourselves. When we know ourselves, we know what we need to arise, right? Rise. And what we don't need, the things that we should let go. Like the digestive system, it goes back to that. So, after a pause, while the disciples silently contemplated him, the master continued. Life on earth is a rocky road that leads us to the loving arms of God. Work is the march. The common struggle is the daily walk. The delightful and short passing of daybreak and the nightly hours of serenity are times of rest. But listen closely to me. In activity or at rest, the opportunity of an hour, of a gentle action, of a humble word, is the invitation of our Father for us to sow His sacred blessings. So even though life invites us to face all the struggles in our lives, right? All the struggles that happens, we should have faith and take heart, have courage and joy, even in those moments that makes you lose faith in yourself. So the importance of the daily work. Have you asked yourself, why am I doing what I'm doing? Why am I going through those struggles? Why am I here? Why should I not do other things? I wish I could do other things and not what I'm doing right now. And there's a reason for it, right? In every struggle that we go through, we grow. And then he continues. In general, human beings abuse such gifts by placing their imperfect needs before God's purpose, disturbing their own advance. So this is the egoic self that comes in and say, no, stop. I'm going to tell you what to do. I'm going to make you find the joy that I think is best for you, right? The egoic self is the shadow mind. All the things that just comes to us and wants us to just enjoy, to overdo, to use our abilities, to abuse our abilities, and so on and so forth. So it's very important to be able to know how to separate our acknowledge and understand and be able to separate the ego with the I, the complete I, that does not need anything else to survive, does not need anything else to be happy. By just being still, you're able to find that you are a whole and nothing else is needed for you to find joy. Right? And that results in the most arduous journey necessary in order to rectify faults committed and often fruitless efforts. Due to this reason, we observe that earthly travelers are always low-spirited. Right? So when we abuse the possessions that we have, our intellectual capacity, capability, our power, we find ourselves very low-spirited. And the reason why is because we disconnect from the kingdom of heaven in our hearts. So he invites us to take a look and to be able to separate and not abuse those powers. And that in the obsessive need to fulfill their own desires, they injure themselves on the rocky roads, hearing not the truth about spiritual reality, closing their eyes with the shadow of rebelliousness, and shedding tears with desperate shouts and bitter moans, without seeing the true crystal fountain, the charitable star in the heaven, the flower scent, the words of a friend, and the clarity of the experiences that God has spread for their journey in all the aspects of their path. So, the Spiritus book in question, 999, guide us to how we can be able to be in touch with the kingdom of heaven. How can we know ourselves, right? So the Spiritus book asks, what is the most effective method for guaranteeing self-improvement and resisting the attraction of wrongdoing? So a philosopher of antiquity once said, know thyself, right? So Socrates said, know yourself. And Aristotle goes on to say, knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom, right? Because when we know yourself, you'll be able to stop from continue to do a particular action that will then hurt you, right? It's the importance of the emotions. What is the emotion that you're feeling trying to tell you, trying to guide you? it's a compass in our lives, right? We identify with happiness, we identify with joy, but can we identify with anger? Can we identify with sadness? Can we identify with depression? Can we look at happiness the same way as sadness? In a way that they're both measures to guide us to the ideal pathway of inner reform. As a mother myself of 4, I find myself in moments of, I would say, educational moments, where sometimes there are things that happen around, right? You have to clean, you have to work, you have to do so much stuff, and then you have all these beautiful 4 creatures, children of God, that also, they have their own emotional needs, right? Their own physical needs. And then I find myself angry, especially in the morning, trying to get them out of the door, make all 4 different lunches, right, for school. The 4th lunch is when I take the baby out with me. And then at nighttime, when I'm trying to put everyone to bed because I'm exhausted, so anger takes over. And then I realize, wow, I have anger. I have anger because I allow it to happen. Okay, but why am I feeling that way? Right? And that's one way to know yourself. So why am I feeling that way? And that's the question that I ask myself. And with bow animals, right, I take heart into acknowledging that emotion. I do a practice that Thich Nhat Hanh says, treat your emotions like you're treating a baby. So I take my anger in my arms as much as I can, and I say, hello, little anger, thank you for coming. What would you like to do today? I can see that you would like to make me scream, and you would like to make me go crazy, so that I can feel terrible later. Thank you for coming, but now I release you, right? And this is the power of transformation. So the more you know yourself, the more you're able to not get rid of your emotions, but to take it and transform it into a positive educational outcome for your life. So St. Augustine suggests in the Spirit's book, chapter 12, we fully admit the wisdom of saying, but self-knowledge is precisely what is most difficult to achieve. How can we acquire it? Do what I myself used to do during my life on earth. At the end of each day, I would assess my conscience, review everything that I had done, and I would ask myself whether I had failed in some duty, whether someone might have reason to complain of me. It was thus that I arrived at knowing myself and seeing what there was in me that needed to be reformed. Right? So for him, he was able to, at nighttime, to go back and see what he had done and what he could have done better. And that's another way that we can get to know ourselves. And this inner reform is beautiful because it allows you to go so deep in yourself and find not only the things that we usually tend to find. Oh, I am angry. Oh, I am whatever it is. But you find that you're a child of God. And the DNA of God, it's in you. And you can access that DNA any moment. Okay. So let's go. So I've continued. After a pause, while the disciples silently contemplated him, the master continued. Life on earth is a rocky road. I'm sorry. I just want to make sure. Oh, excuse me. Yes. Okay. So there was a short pause in their affectionate consideration, after which, without reaching a complete understanding of Jesus' words, Bartholomew questioned him. Master, your clarification alleviates my sorrows, but does the gospel demand from us a permanent strength? And then Jesus answers, Truth does not demand, it transforms. The gospel could not demand a special state of mind of its disciple. However, it is necessary to consider that joy, courage, and hope should be the constant traits of the disciple's everyday activity. Why focus for a moment on the nightmare if we know the reality of the eternal glory with our Father? Right? So, I think about transformation, the growth as a tree, right? The stages of a tree. Can you think of a little seed creating such a beautiful tree? Can you imagine that? Are we able to imagine such a transformation? Right? And it brings me to the parable of the mustard seed, right? That if you have faith as a mustard seed, you can move the mountains. But before that, can you identify the mustard seeds within yourselves? Are you able to see yourself not only as the little tiny, insignificant seed, but this tree that gives so much life to everyone around you, to nature itself, right? And one thing that when I think of a tree, I think of stillness. What a tree goes through, different stages of the climate, right? Different winter, summer, spring, fall, and it's still there. Their branches could be cut, but it's still there. And even if you cut the main branch up to here, I saw in my neighbors, there was one leaf growing from it. Mm-hmm. And I was amazed. And I said, wow, the tree's not dead. And the reason why is because as we grow, and if we grow in Christ, our roots also grow as deeper as we grow also on the outside. And that sustains us. So if you have a faith as a mustard seed, you can transform yourself and you can become these beautiful trees. I think about the trees in Africa, those big trees that all the kids have all these beautiful shades, right? Gives them home and also provides them food. So transformation demands time. Are we ready to wait for our transformation? Or do we want to become so evolved right away? Right? I think about childbirth. Oh, it's painful. Very painful. I had 4 times. And every time you forget about it. And then once you get pregnant again, you go, oh gosh, I kind of remember that pain. I can't believe I'm going through it again. Right, Vanessa? So the stages of pregnancy, right? The stages of pregnancy, it's painful, right? It takes you from feeling beautiful to feeling bloated, from feeling energetic to feeling exhausted, from feeling like you can conquer the world to, oh, I cannot even walk a block. It puts you in such a humble situation that the only thing you can do is to find the strength within yourself, because when you hear that heartbeat in a monitor, you feel, now I know why I'm suffering. Not suffering, feeling pain, right? Suffering is an option. Now I know why it's hurting, and it's okay, right? And childbirth, it's painful. It is painful. It doesn't matter how you give birth. It's painful regardless. And even feeding your baby is painful. Even if you decide to do it naturally or not, it's still very painful, right? So I wonder, the transformation takes time, and the pain, if we are willing to wait, the joy from it is beautiful. And then comes the baby and the joy that the baby brings to you in your life, right?
And you forget the pain.
And you totally forget the pain completely.
And then you want to do it again.
And then you want to do it again. Well, I don't know if I'm going to go for the 5th. We shall see. I'll do some things that I'm going to have 6. We shall see. So transformation demands time. So let's be kind to ourselves. right? Let's have bon animo. If you're going through struggles in your life, right? If you're going through painful moments, such as in your house, with your relationships, with someone that passed away, with your religion, with anything in your life that is giving you pain, take heart, pray, connect with God. This too shall pass. So the fishermen asked Jesus with restless look, and when the affairs of the world opposes us, and when everything seems to be going against us, Jesus, fully understand the point of the question, clarified with kindness, what is the best business in the world, Bartholomew? So he's talking about the pain that he feels to see that in the world, what he says, like evil seems to surpass the good, seems to always win, right? In his very narrow vision, because he's looking only at the seeds. He's not looking at the capability of growth, right? Something beyond that. So, so Jesus kindly clarified, what is the best business in the world, Bartholomew? Would it be the quest carried out under the weight of gold? As a young disciple, he's looking to have, success in his life, right? Like we always want as well. Many times choking the heart of the consciousness, increasing the worries of the material life. So I'm going to repeat this question. Would it be the quest carried out under the weight of gold, many times choking the heart and the conscience, increasing the worries of the material life? Right? So the gold here represents the burden of the excesses. Right? And we, in the planet, we use the monetary system to allow us to be able to buy food, pay for shelter, be able to travel, be able to study. But in this, in what he's saying, it's talking about the gold, the excess of life. The things that we so much sometimes, I'm not saying we, that sometimes if one could find he or herself working too much to get that gold, right? So it becomes a burden in your spirit. And I would like to mention an audio from the book of the Chico Xavier, one of many of his mediumistic sessions. They recorded and put it in an audio book called, I'm going to try to translate, the Cacophony Instructions, which was chapter 16 and called Bitter Experiences. And it talks about a spirit, the last reincarnation of the spirit, incarnation, excuse me. And he discarnated, and he was able to gain a lot of material wealth while he was living on the earth. And he found himself in a very disturbed situation, because when he looked at his coffin, he saw a very shiny, beautiful piece that when he saw was gold. And it's a long story, but everything that he went back to turned into gold. He was thirsty. He went to open the faucet, tried to get some water. Once he touched it, it turned to gold. And he was devastated. He went back home. He tried to rest. Once he's laying down, the mattress turned to gold. So he was very, very much feeling a discomfort, because what he so much searched for, he found. Because whatever our mind, whatever we want, we will get. It's the law of attraction, right? And God is so wonderful that he doesn't judge, he loves. And everything will happen, everything will come. So he found himself with everything was gold and devastated. So it's very important, because where your treasure is, you will find your heart. Where your heart is, you will find your life. Where you are, your life is, you will find your thoughts, and your thoughts will create your now, your future, your outcomes, right? So then the master continues, or Bartholomew, would it be the true enlightenment of the soul on the path towards God's love through the brush along the way? Wouldn't the challenge to worldly matters be a friendly invitation to others to sow with love, a subtle request that can shatter the illusion of the earth to the truth of the kingdom of heaven? And the beautiful thing about Jesus is that he always asks a question to our immortal spirit to reflect. He never gave really the answer. And as co-creators of God, we are able to create our own future. And it's so beautiful that he allows us to create our lives, right? So how can we find those answers? Coming back inside to a pure consciousness through your spirit, reflecting. So Bartholomew kept that answer in his heart because he already was touched by Jesus' message. And through experiencing some uneasiness, because the growth, it has a little bit of discomfort when we are growing, right? When you're trying to train for a marathon, as you train, you start to feel discomfort. Your muscle hurts, you want to stop, right? And then after 6 miles, after you're able to run 6 miles, you feel so good, right? You get that energy. So soon after, remember that his mother had departed to the shadows of the grave not too long before. He still actually asked. Now it's talking about the passing of his mother. Master, would our sadness be justifiable when we lose our loved one? And that was the question. And Jesus replied, but who is lost if God is the Father of all of us? Look how beautiful that question is, so deep. But who is lost if God is the Father of all of us? No one. No one. If those buried in the mud of crime will glimpse one day the dawn of redemption, why lament in desperation the friend who has departed due to the call of the all-powerful? The death of the body opens doors to a new world for the soul. Nobody will truthfully be an orphan on earth, inasmuch as nobody will ever be abandoned, because everything is from God and we are all his children. That is why each disciple of this gospel has to be a sower of peace and joy. I think about as a mother, I have 4 children. I have to come back to my experiences. If there was a hell, a forever hell, where one of my children decided to not follow the gospel, let's say, and did everything wrong, everything in this world to harm herself and others. And then I have the other 3 that, let's say, they follow the pathway. And when we meet afterwards, right, in the spiritual world, I see that one of my child, could be a daughter or son, still thought that whatever he or she did was wonderful and she would continue to do it. Nobody would change her mind. Would I be happy knowing that my child would be forever in the abyss of hell? Would I, as a mother, that my love for as a mother is so big, imagine our Father who is in heaven. Would I be able to be happy for the rest of my eternity knowing that one of my child was hurting forever? So the opportunity of an incarnation that the gospel according to Spiritism and in the Spiritism doctrine comes to enlighten us is that there is always a chance. Take heart. It's okay. It can take millions of years for one spirit to say, hey, now I understand why I should change. Now I understand why the love is the way. Right? So when it says here, if those buried in the mud of crime will glimpse one day the dawn of redemption, look how beautiful that is. God loves no matter what, right? Why lament the desperation, the friend who has departed due to the call of the all-powerful? The death of the body opens door to a new world for the soul. Think about how wonderful it is, the opportunity that God gives us to have other opportunities to grow. So let's rejoice in Christ. All is well. So Jesus became silent as though he had completed his wise and serene explanation. And due to the advanced hour, Bartholomew said goodbye. That night, the look of the master offered him a brighter and sweeter light. His hand softly touched Bartholomew's shoulders, leaving him with an encouraging and unfamiliar feeling. You know those feelings, the blissful feelings that you feel when after a nice lecture, a nice study, after the Spirit Center, and you feel so blissful, right? Or something when you are together with family or friends or a loved one, your partner, and you feel that bliss. That's how he was feeling. So even though Bartholomew had born in Cana of Galilee, so it's going back to talk a little bit about his story, okay? He was then residing in the Malta, to which he headed, thoughtfully meditating on the lessons that he had received. The night seemed prettier than ever. Up high, the stars looked like the glorifying lights from God's palace, awaiting its living beings with rhyme of joy. To his eyes, the waters of the Gennesaret were more placid and happier. The mild wind seems to whisper caressing inspirations, like a delicate message that reached him from the sky. Bartholomew started to recall the reason for his inexplicable sadness. But surprisingly, he no longer found him in his heart. So he was able to surpass that situation. He gained a virtue. He remembered having lost his affectionate mother. However, he thought it over more deeply in regards to the purpose of the divine providence. Was not God his father and mother in heaven? He recalled his life's tribulation and pondered that his blood brother had upset and slandered him. However, was not Jesus a generous and sincere brother? He pondered his material failures. However, what was his vision or the greed of the merchants from Bethesda and Capernaum compared to the light of the kingdom of God, which he worked to build in his heart? So nothing in his life changed after he met Christ. He still was a fisherman. He was still going through his struggles. His life was still very difficult, but his heart was connected to something else beyond his material life and what he was going through. He reached his home at a daybreak. From the distance, the first rays of the sun seemed like messengers of celestial comfort. The singing of the birds echoed in his soul with harmonious notes of proud joy. The lowing of the oxen, right, the sound of the cattle, had a different tone in his ears. His soul was now clear. His heart was relieved and happy. At the creaking of the door hinges, his brothers berated him, accusing him of being a bad son and vagabond and a traitor of the law. However, Bartholomew recalled the gospel and felt that only he had enough joy to give to his brothers. Instead of reacting harshly, As in the past, he smiled kindly with gracious explanations. So, this chapter invites us to take heart. Your life situations will probably stay the same way until you have to go through them. But rejoice in Christ. Find the strength that He gives us to be able to go through your struggles. Because Bartholomew was able now to see his brothers and his father that did not like that he was following Christ, but he understood that they didn't know Christ yet. So he just stayed silently. He understood that his co-workers, the fishermen, perhaps was treating him indifferently, but he took a moment of silence again and smiled through it, knowing that they too were going through their own struggles. Right? So this brings us the invitation of being able to silence, to be able to stay still, especially in difficult moments in our lives, right? Instead of overreacting to things, let's stop, take a deep breath, know that we are immortal spirits. This is just an educational path that you're going through. That everything has happened to you for a purpose, and it will pass. So if we are able to remember that, just stop, breathe, say a prayer if you can, but silence already each one of the prayers that you can say. So he became very cheerful and confident, very joyful. And that's what Christ wants from his disciples. That's what he invites us to be. Let's be joyful. Let's have courage. Let's go out there. Let's go back home and say, this too shall pass. I know that this will make me grow as a spirit. So at nighttime when I'm exhausted and the anger starts to boil, I say, it's okay. This is making me stronger, right? And then usually when I don't overreact, if I just stop, the kids, they stop. They just stop and they go to bed, right? Is it like that with you as well? When you stop, when you're so on top of them, go this, do this, trying to control the situation, the life becomes much more difficult. But when you just relax, everything calms down and everything flows. But can we calm down? Even though we are feeling the emotions, right? Because we need to analyze them. Why am I feeling the way I am? But instead of reacting to something, leave it space so that it can pass through you, and then you can see it in a clear way. Okay, so he had an educational attitude. So let's take this educational attitude back home. I love when I trip on the rock. I used to be very upset because I do have anger inside of me. But now I fall, and I fell 2 weeks ago. And as much as I want to be angry, I say, oh, thank you so much. This made me stop and be grateful for my knees. Stop and be grateful that I have what I have in that moment, right? So if we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change. Like Wayne Dyer said. So Bartholomew had converted his misfortune into a rhyme of joy, into a regenerative breath of the teaching of Christ. Everyone looked at him with surprise, except Jesus, who jubilantly knew the new mental attitude of his disciple. So the following Saturday, the master appeared by the lake shore, surrounded by a number of followers. The crowd included common men and women of the village, Jews, administrators of the town of Antipas, and great numbers of Roman soldiers. So Jesus started to preach the good news. At a point, he started according to Matthew, that the kingdom of heaven is like a treasure hidden in a field. When a man found it, he hid it again. And then, in his joy, went and sold all he had and bought that field. So what is interesting here is that the kingdom of heaven means the state of the soul or spirit when they feel plenitude, right, in their hearts. No matter what's going on in your life, they feel full of joy, even hurting. So this kingdom is a divine work in the hearts of men. So, but how can we find the kingdom of God? And the field is the opportunity of spiritual growth. Let it be in your household, let it be at work, working in any other work, at the Spiritual Center, at charitable works, right? We find the opportunity to bring the kingdom of God in our hearts. And the treasure that you find represents the highest point of the effort of transformation for the good. It's a virtue. When you go through something in your life and you're able to surpass that obstacle, and that obstacle comes back again, right, as a test, because we're here in the world of trial and expiation, right, and you see that situation does not longer bother you or change your mental field, then you overcame it. And Bartholomew, in this case, he turned his sadness, discouragement, and melancholic moments into courage, joy, bom ânimo. He turned it to a virtue. In the instance, the master gaze settled on Bartholomew, who contemplated him, captivated. The soft light of his general eyes deeply penetrated the apostle's inner soul. Due to the kindness that he noticed, the humble fisherman understood the subtle allusion of the teaching. With his soul enlightened and content for having rid himself of all remaining vanity, he then was able to acquire the divine treasure of the eternal life. So I just want to say one thing. Bartholomew, it said that he was skinned to death, like he was taking the skin while he was alive at a very old age. And looking at, and he's holding the knife, right? And his own skin, I don't know if you can see that. And he's looking up, and this is a statue from the Crier Le Gros de Younger. He was the one who made it because it represents the inner work that he did on himself. Even with the struggles that hurt, he was able to see himself rid of all that saddens him. So he was able to digest, I would say, let go of everything that he didn't need to carry any longer. And this represents to me as the opportunity of the inner reform, joyfully, and the opportunity that God gives to us to reincarnate over and over and over again. So to finish, extending a look of love and recognition of Jesus, Bartholomew wiped a tear. It was the first time that he had cried in joy. Imagine how many times he cried because he was sad. The fisherman from the Manuta forever adhere to the eternal joy of the gospel of the kingdom. So I would like for you to I invite you to see yourself as immortal spirits. Look at the divine light inside of you. Look at all the opportunities that you have to grow, right? And take heart. Smile through it. Like they say, breathe through the contractions. See the beauty in all. And all is well. So I would like to ask for permission for our disciple David to recite Psalm 23. The Lord is our shepherd. Let's pay attention to the words. Can you close your eyes for a moment if you would like? The Lord, and feel Him in your heart. The Lord is our shepherd. We lack nothing. He makes us lie down in green pastures. He leads us beside quiet waters. He refreshes our soul. He guides us along the right path for His name's sake. Even though we walk through the darkest valley, we will fear no evil. For you are with us. Your rod and your staff, they comfort us. You prepare a table before us in the presence of our enemies. You anoint our head with oil. Our cup overflows. Surely your goodness and love will follow us all days of our lives, and we will dwell in the house of the Lord forever and ever. You may slowly come back. And I thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to dive in to myself, to find the courage to continue on my pathway. Thank you for this opportunity. This was the first time doing this, and I can't believe it went fast, but mostly I cannot believe how much time I cried, and I saw myself growing so much studying this chapter. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.